Of course. Thank you, Ruben, and thank you, John, for that introduction. I hope I live up to everything you said about me. So as John said, my name is Adam Neves. I'm the co-founder and owner of First Light Investment Advisors. We're an investment advisory firm based out of Manchester by the Sea, Massachusetts, which is on the North Shore of Massachusetts. And I started this firm probably a little over 2 years ago or so. I've been managing client assets since that time. But just kind of wanted to bring you back how I got into the business a little bit. So I started my career in the investment industry about 20 years ago at this point. I started in Boston, which is where I'm from originally. And I was actually a trader for a mutual fund up here. Worked here for many, many years, trading stocks and derivatives, and then ended up moving down to New York City to be with my girlfriend at the time, who's my wife now, and worked down there. And what I ended up doing was actually ended up working for a hedge fund, trading derivatives and stocks for that fund. And then after a few years, ended up managing it myself. And while I was there, our primary clients were institutions, right? So we were dealing with endowment funds and pension funds and these institutions that would typically give us 50, 100, $250 million accounts, right? And what we would do is, we would meet with 6 MBAs across, the table from us twice a year and really do a deep dive analysis of the portfolio. So basically what we did was we bought a portfolio of stocks, invested it, used derivatives and whatnot, and hoped to beat the market, right? And then ended up moving back to Boston. I wanted to be closer to my family. I had a little one at the time who's 11 at this point. And I found myself working 100+ hour work weeks for this fund. And I decided actually to take a little bit of time off. And during that time, I actually was managing my own money as well as some friends and family money. But I think what ultimately got me into this business, what I'm doing now is I had spent some time working at a nonprofit in Peabody, Massachusetts. And this nonprofit, they ran a homeless shelter for women and their children. And they also ran a food pantry as well. And while I was there, I got to know, I dealt with operations there. And I got to know a lot of the plumbers and electricians and a lot of the tradespeople that would come in and fix things around the building, right? And while I was there getting to know these guys, ultimately we got around to talking about what I used to do. And I would tell them, that I used to do investing, and they would come to me and say, oh my God, I've always wanted to be involved in the market, or maybe I have an old IRA that I haven't looked at for many years or whatnot. And, I really want to get involved in the market, right? Because I know that that's one of the big ways to create wealth these days. And I had this idea that I'd always wanted to start my own business. Ultimately, I didn't enjoy working for other people. I always wanted to work for myself. I thought that was very important for me. I thought that was very important for my family and to showcase to my children that was a good thing to do and to kind of give back to the community. And I think doing this time at this nonprofit just kind of brought everything together, showing me personally that there was a whole group of individuals out there that needed what I considered to be a very high level product and a high level of investment service, as well as what I wanted to give them in the form of a high level of client service as well, right? So before, in my prior life, I was managing, as I said, institutional money. So we were looking at everything very deep and really getting into these investments. And then when I was talking to these other individuals, I was realizing that, unless you had $500,000 or $1 million, a lot of these people were going to Wells Fargo or Bank of America or these larger wealth advisors. And unless they had these amount of assets, they weren't getting the type of service or the product that I believe that they should get, right? So, they would go into these firms and, as I said, unless they had $1 million, they would get a young junior person who would maybe talk to them once a year and put them in some mutual funds, and they would underperform the market. And at the end of the year, they would realize maybe I made some money, but maybe I could have done better. And they just didn't have a very good understanding of how the stock market worked, and why they should ultimately invest, right? And so when I set out to start my firm with 2 other partners, we wanted to create a firm that gave investors a very high level of product that I was able to give from my background and the level of due diligence and the level of research that I do in the companies that we invest in. So for instance, every company that I myself have invested in and my family's money in is the same companies that I put our clients in as well, right? So I put my money where my mouth is. But then on top of that, I wanted to give a very high level of client service as well. So when I hand out my business card, the number on the business card is my personal cell phone number, right? So I always say the first time I meet with clients, this is my personal cell phone number. Call me Saturday night if you have a question. Call me Friday morning if you have a question. If you maybe see something on CNBC about a company or anything that you're interested in, just call me, right? Because it's very important for me to have an open line of communication with an individual who doesn't have millions of dollars, but they've worked very hard to build up this money in an IRA or an individual account, and they want to make sure that it's being watched over, and managed because it's very important to them. So that's pretty much kind of a full rundown of my company. As I said, we manage portfolios for individuals and families and some smaller institutions in the area as well. And so we manage, individual accounts. We manage retirement accounts such as IRAs, accounts like that. We also manage trust as well. So with that, I hope that kind of gives a good rundown of my company. And I'd just like to, kind of open up to any questions that anyone may have.
I always like to start with a question. Adam, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions about, what you do and how you do it. But I think, the question that's on my mind whenever we have an entrepreneur, business owner on is why, and why this business, and why, let's just say, what are some other careers that you thought you might have pursued, but you chose financial investments?
Yeah, of course. That's a great question. I think ultimately it was instilled in me at a young age. As John said. So my grandmother's originally from Manila, and my grandfather, on my dad's side, half Cape Verdean and half Filipino. And, he brought my grandmother over here during World War II, and they owned a bunch of cranberry bogs down on the South Shore of Massachusetts, where I'm originally from. And I remember, going down, helping him out every summer, and he always had a copy of the Wall Street Journal. And so I was 6, 7, 8 years old, and, we'd be working in the cranberry bogs all day. And then at the end of the day, when we go back and my grandmother would be cooking for us, he'd always be looking at the ticker symbols and these prices. And I would sit next to him. What are you looking at? What does this mean, right? And so I think that at a young age ultimately sparked my interest. But when you're 6, 7, 8, you're not going to do deep dive analysis of all these companies. And so actually for a time, I thought I was going to be a musician, because I played trumpet all throughout school and in middle school and high school. And I was very into jazz. And I think what made me transition into the investment business was one of the things that I really enjoyed about music was seeing how deep you could dive into jazz and into the type of music that you were playing, right? Which I know may sound a bit esoteric when it comes to business, but ultimately what you need to do in the investment industry is you have to keep on digging when we look at investments, right? So for instance, if you look at a company like Tesla, right? Tesla was, everyone knows who Tesla is. We see the cars everywhere, and, the stock didn't do very well last year, but it's come back a bit this year, and ultimately it's looking at the company and saying, okay, well, they have cars, but what else do they have? Well, they get all this information from the drivers that, they could use for insurance. They're a software company. One day they'll hopefully figure out, autonomous driving. So I think for me, it was always the interest of continually digging deeper and deeper, which allowed me to ultimately be successful in this business, and be able to invest in good companies. And I think it's, as an entrepreneur, I mean, you have to do that, right? Because, there'll be days when putting out a fire someplace, and and then something's happening with the market, and you have to be able to quickly dig deep and figure out what's going on, and then be able to actively move to the next thing.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. As you were speaking, Adam, I thought we were gonna get the story about how you were in the cranberry bogs and wanted to be a cranberry, work for Ocean Spray or something like that.
Oh, no. We used to sell our cranberries to Ocean Spray, but yeah, no, we're not in that business anymore. That's a hard business to be in.
I bet. No,
Very low margins in that business.
I bet farming in general is a really tough business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. All right. Well, I'm gonna. That was my first question. I love it, man. I think, as you said, I think it's really important to get into the details. I mean, that's kind of what we do is, private lenders to anyone who wants to build a building, rehab a building, buy a building, whatever. There's so much under the surface, of what you can find, and not necessarily just through Chat GPT. By the way, that's not the answer. even though there's a lot you can find there.
There is. But as you said before, just going out networking. I mean, a lot of the companies that we invest in, I call the head of investor relations. I set up meetings with these people. And so from my perspective, it's very important to keep that, human connection that isn't ChatGPT open with the companies that we invest in.
I've got a question that I'm itching to ask. I have a few. Maybe I'll ask a couple at once, and maybe they can tie in together somehow. One, how could someone hears about invest, you gotta invest. How can they break into investing? How can they get started? And then two, I've always heard, it's important to start young. It's important to start investing as soon as you can. And I've heard about the importance of compound interest, but I guess I'd love to hear from you if you could talk about what that is and the significance and what kind of impact it can have. I don't know if you can give an example or something.
Yeah, no, of course. And I think the two of those actually go hand in hand, right? So to get into investing, it's very simple. There are multiple firms. There's Charles Schwab, there's Fidelity, there's E-Trade. There's all these companies that allow you just to literally go on their website, open up an account in 10 to 15 minutes. You put all your basic information in there, and then you can connect, that account to your checking account, savings account, transfer money in, and you can start buying stocks as soon as the money's in there, right? And I think, just to get into it, to start investing, I've always been a proponent of investing in what you know, right? So a good example, my 11-year-old daughter, she joined the local investment club at her school. And so last night we were going over, she needed 5 stocks to present. So she's in 5th grade, and everyone in her investment club, it's all boys in 8th grade, right? So she was a little nervous, but she did a great presentation. And so she needed 5 stocks to present. I helped her with 3. And then the other 2, I said, well, what do you know? What companies do you know? What are you interested in? And one thing she brought up was her and my wife, they like to go to this store or restaurant called Sweet Green. And I'm not sure if you know what Sweet Green is, but Sweet Green is a place, it's basically where you go and you can create your own salad from very high level organic ingredients, right? So you're not going to go and leave there and feel full and gross, right? It's a very healthy place, and it's very expensive as well, right? So, and it's interesting is because I was getting a lot of salads from there in the past couple months, and when they had earnings at the end of June, the stock popped because, the company had done well. So that's something I like to tell people that are new to investing is invest in what you know. Right? If you're buying Apple products, if you perhaps just got a Tesla car, or you're going to Sweet Green to get your salads, invest in these companies and products that you know, right? Which I guess then transitions to the next point in terms of, starting young. And John asked a great question about compound interest, which I believe, so compound interest is one of the 2 reasons I believe that you should invest in the market. The other being inflation, which we can talk about at a different point if you want. But a very good example of compound interest is this. If you're 25 years old and you put $5,000 away for 10 years and then you stop, okay? By the time you're 65, if you have an 8% interest rate, you'll have approximately $800,000. So you start when you're 25, you put $50,000 away over the next 10 years, $5,000 a year till you're 35. No more money goes into your account. And if you're getting an annualized, like an average return of 8%, you'll have about $800,000 by the time you're 65, okay? So flash forward, if you start investing when you're 35, so you're 10 years older, and you invest $5,000 a year for 30 years, you're investing $150,000. That's $5,000 a year over 30 years, right? Still 8% interest. You're only going to have a little over $600,000. So the 25-year-old invested $50,000 for 10 years. The 35-year-old invested $150,000 for 30 years, and the 25-year-old still has about $200,000 more by the time they're the same age. And the reason that is because I'll try to draw it with my hand, but you have a base level of money that you're putting in. And as that grows, as the base level of the foundation grows from getting the interest and getting the return every year, it exponentially grows. In the first couple of years, you're not going to see a lot, right? A 10% return on $50,000, on $5,000, that's not a lot of money. But then you have 10 the next year, and 15, and 20, and it adds up. And before you know it, you put 50,000 in, forgot about it. It's, in something for 40 years, for 30 years, and you have $800,000. So I always tell people to try to start investing as early as they can. Now, does that mean if you're older, you can't invest? No, absolutely not. Any time is a great time to start investing, right? But just to kind of give you a good example of the effects of compound interest, that's one of the reasons why I think that people should invest.
Yeah, no, that's really clear. You didn't need a diagram to make that. Visually that was. I think the difference is though, right? When you're 25, it's harder to really feel like you're a grown up.
Yes.
Have the discipline to actually do that.
Absolutely, and it's so hard. And I would recommend, if you have a job that has a 401k, right? So if you're working with a company and they have a 401k for you, put as much money into that as you can. You're gonna forget about it. It goes in there. The company will match it. The company is giving you free money. And you'll get your paycheck and you won't even think about it, right? So, when you're young, do that. You can start an IRA when you're older, right? For 2024, you can put $7,000 into your IRA, tax-free, deduct it from your taxes, right? So there's multiple ways to invest, so, I recommend, meeting with a professional, kind of going over your situation, what your income is, if you have a spouse, their income is, if you have children, if you're going to put money away from them for school in the future or whatnot. But I would definitely recommend investing. It's very important.
Awesome. Okay. So based off what you just said, I think we have a question that I think would make sense to ask right now.
Okay.
So Antoinette says, is using a platform like Public a good way to start investing in stocks? So
I'm not actually too familiar with Public. Is that just an online platform for investing, or?
Yeah, me neither. I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's one of many, right? So that's the
right. Right. Yeah. So I would say, using any type of online platform, where you can go in and you can invest in companies is a good idea. A lot of times, there'll be different companies. I don't know if Public's one of them, but a lot of these small startup investment firms, that are purely online will, give you cash for a certain amount of money that you put in, right? Which is great. But, at the end of the day, I go by the old Warren Buffett rule that buy what buy and hold it. Don't go in and buy companies and then trade it a couple of days later. And just, do your due diligence on the companies that you're investing in.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing that I'll say, the biggest difference between doing an online investing firm as opposed to doing what Adam just said is that typically you're just not going to get the personalization that's required to really kind of fit you with a solution that's more of a tailored solution as opposed to maybe just a solution, the best template they can fit you in, so to speak.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Ruben. I mean, when I meet with clients, as I said, I meet with them one-on-one multiple times to really get to know their needs. And what we do is we create customized portfolios for everyone, right? So someone who maybe is 23, 24, just starting a job, we're not going to invest in the same equities, stocks, that we will invest in someone who's maybe 55 or 60 or looking to retire, right? But the process that we use, that myself and my partners use to research these investments and to pick the investments, is the same across the board, right? But we like to customize all of our portfolios for all of our clients.
Perfect. All right, awesome. Hey, I know we'll probably have more questions from the panel, but Reina has a question. I think it's appropriate. I'm 46. Would like to retire at 55. Mm-hmm. Any input?
Yeah, no, I would, so I would see, I'd first probably kind of ask, what money you have put away, whether it be in savings accounts, whether it be in IRAs, if maybe you're currently contributing to a 401k, maybe you can increase the match there. What other debts do you have? Do you have credit card debt, mortgage? Are you paying on a house? Do you own your house? Cars like that. So yeah, I mean, we could sit down and come out with a very customized plan for you.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, no, that's a great question, Reina. I think, I think financial education and then planning is so important because I think even though you can ask a question that might seem, like a simple question, there's way more questions that need to be asked before that question's answered. It's right. Like, well, what have you done so far? Because if you haven't done anything, that's completely different if you've already been doing something and you know what I mean, you already kind of have some sort of experience doing stuff. So it's completely, it's never a one size fits all, so to speak. So
yeah, Adam, I had a question for you. So when it comes to, again, you're helping people plan more for the future, but as you look over their situation, how is it, or not how is it, but do you also help them, like I'm sure people are dealing with debt as well, do you help go over how they could take care of that debt over time?
Yes, absolutely. So rates where they are today, if you look at mortgage rates, rates on credit cards, I like to sit down with my clients and we literally come up with a list of all their debt. What is your credit card debt? What is your car payment? What is your mortgage payment? What is your rent payment? And look where everything's going, right? Because, I'm not going to have you, I'll have you put obviously away less money, if you have $20,000 on a credit card that you're paying 30% on. Right. So, I mean, you have to kind of create a hierarchy of financial needs and how you're going to pay stuff down and in what order you're going to pay stuff down. Right. So debt is something I always look at. I like to help my clients move towards being debt free. Right. While also being able to put some money away investing. Right. Because it is nice to see your credit card statement or your school loan or you get the title from your car or whatever, all that stuff at zero. But it is also nice and to know that, every month you're getting that statement that you've been putting a little money away in an IRA, right? And it doesn't need to be a lot. You can put $50 away a month. You can put $100 away a month, right? And as I talked about before with compound interest, it will continuously grow over time.
Yeah. And do you have like a Google sheet or something like that where that you could send to people in order
yes
for them?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yep.
How can people get that?
Yep. So you can come directly. You can email me my website. It's my name at First Light Investment Advisors, or you can just do info@firstlightinvestment.com. But our website is firstlightinvestment.com. All my details there. That's my personal cell phone. Feel free to call me, text me, email me, whatever's easiest for you, whatever form of communication you want. And I'm happy to kind of help you through everything. We basically kind of work with clients at the beginning free, just to kind of see what they're going and see if we can help them out. So, we don't ask you to sign anything. There's nothing like that until we start actually working as your investment advisor. But ultimately, as I said before, we set up these companies. We set up this company, because I know that there is a need out there for people that don't have $500,000 or $1 million or millions of dollars, but they have some money and they want to invest it, and they've worked hard for it, and they've worked hard for their kids, and they want to make sure that they're making the right decisions, right?
Yeah, it's great that you do that. Oh, go for it.
I'm sorry, Doug. I just want to make time for some public questions.
Go for it.
We got a couple good ones. So Ryan says, my mom has an existing 401k plan managed by her employer. She's preparing to retire. Should she keep the money in her 401k or move it into a management?
So I actually know Ryan. Ryan's kids go to school with mine. Hi, Ryan. So if your mom's going to continue working at the company, obviously keep the 401k, but it seems like she's going to be retiring from the company. And if they don't offer any more contributions to her 401k, your best bet would be to roll it over into an IRA, right? And she could roll over those assets tax free, and you could take over management of it from that point.
All right, perfect.
And I think also too, another thing you want to look at is, when you first set up your 401k, are you actively managing it? As you reach these benchmarks in your life, when you're 35, 45, 55, 60, 65, are you changing the investments, right? Are you going to, an aggressive style when you're in your 20s to something that's a bit more conservative? So we got to make sure that your mom's keeping up with that.
Yeah. One last public question that I want to just make sure that we ask.
Yeah.
What IRA is the best for small business and why?
So I think I like to use what's called a simple IRA. And what that is it basically an IRA that is set up for small businesses that don't have the resources to set up a 401k for themselves and all those employees, right? So with a normal IRA, like a Roth or a traditional IRA, you can contribute $7,000 tax-free to that IRA every year. With a simple IRA, you can contribute, I believe this year, it's up to $16,000 tax-free to that IRA, and the company can make up to a 3% match of your salary to that company by year end, right? So you're more than doubling what you can in a traditional IRA, tax-free, and the company can contribute to that as well. So for small business owners, which those are most of my clients, people who own small trades companies, I have a lot of simple IRAs that I set up for them.
Very cool. Very cool. Awesome. Wow, that was great. I think we have a lot of good questions coming in from the audience. We only probably have time for one more question, Adam. I usually like asking this to our guests about sharing their experience as business owners and entrepreneurs. What would you say has been the most challenging part of working for yourself and really just being on that journey, as opposed to doing what you could do and get a job, maybe not like it. Most people don't like their jobs, so that's what would you say has been the most challenging thing? And the second part is, what advice would you give anyone who maybe wants to be in your business?
Yeah,
what you do?
Of course. Those are great questions, and I'd say you kind of hit on the answer in the first part. And I'd say the most difficult thing is staying on task. And it's realizing that there's no one else there. As you said, it's very easy to get a job at another company and you have the retirement plan and it's very comfortable and not, but you have to always remind yourself of why you started this journey, right? I've been managing my company now, as I said, for a little over 2 years, and my wife actually recently started a company. She's local. She's a doula, which is kind of like a midwife. And she started a birthing center, local here in a town called Beverly. And I've seen her through this process where when you're getting the company up and running and you're picking the logo and getting the office furniture, it's so much fun and it's very exciting. But then actually going to the office, sitting in front of your computer and realizing that no one's going to come through that door until you start going out and networking and presenting on things like this and really putting yourselves out there. It can be scary, right? But you have to realize that that's why you got yourself into this position to begin with, is because you don't want to be beholden to getting up and going to the same job, every single day. And you want to be able to, create the future for yourself, right? And so I guess that kind of leads to, any advice that I would give an entrepreneur is, and this is the same advice I give to my kids. Maybe I'm a little old school when I say this, but I said, at the end of the day, no one's going to do it for you, and you have to do it for yourself, right? And I think that that's very scary for a lot of people to hear, but for me, it was a very freeing thing once I realized that, right? So I think when you get into it, you're excited, and then you're scared because you realize that the business will only come through, your paycheck is only going to come through if you make it happen. But then you get over that and you go through ups and downs with it, but then you go through it and you realize that you are making it happen, right? And it feeds your fire, and it feeds that inner fire you have for it to continually grow.
Yeah, no, that's a great, well put. Another version of what you said is something that I think is more, it strikes a chord more for me. No one's gonna save you. No one, you know what I mean? No one's gonna save you. You're gonna have to do it yourself if you want to make it happen, or no one's gonna do it for you. I just feel like I don't know. The younger generations get blamed for being entitled, and feeling like they supposedly have owed something. I think that's the worst place to be, regardless of whether we're talking about business or whether we're talking about friendship or family, whatever, you know what I mean? Like, no one's entitled to anything. You absolutely earn, and you get what you deserve.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you learn, and it's incredibly challenging. I know for myself that, in this particular business, when I started it, we had a group of probably 10 to 15 investors that told us they were going to come on right away. Right. And we probably only brought on one or two of those, right, of the people that first started. But there's been so many people that have come from the least place where you would least expect it, that have come on and become clients. So I think, the challenging part is realizing that you have to be very flexible, and what you think is going to happen a lot of times is not going to happen. But that opens up the other doors, and it makes you realize that you can get, business can come from anywhere at any time.
100%. Well, Adam, I can't believe like I feel like the questions just like right after the other, but it just seems to me that everyone wants to plan and not fail.
Yes.
So I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. We probably could have went on for another hour for sure, but
absolutely.
Let's thank you for being here. I want to close out the show with John and Daryl, but certainly I would recommend that you maybe rewatch the play, rewatch the event. There's some people that might have asked you questions, and then we'll actually also want to connect with you. I think Raina left her number for you to call her. So yeah.
Okay. Just a quick note to Adam. Are you able to work with clients nationally, all over the U.S.?
Yes, absolutely. So I am based in Massachusetts. Most of my clients are kind of in the New England area, but I'm happy to travel anywhere. As I said, this is my business, so I'm willing to travel anywhere, anytime. Meet you in person. We can Zoom. Call me anytime. Text me anytime. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. But yes, I'll travel, and we deal with clients. My other partners deal with clients nationally and internationally as well. My other partner spends his time between Westchester, New York, and Madrid.
Want to say thank you to all those people who have watched. Belle, thank you. Financial literacy is key. Thank you so much for being here. Ryan said thank you. Thank you for the question that was answered that he had brought up. Raina said she would love to connect. She appreciated the help. So guys, we are doing this for the community. you know, we are part of the community. We're doing it for the community, and we hope to continue to do it. We'll make sure that it's going to be something that's going to help you educate, empower, and inspire you to make it happen, because that's why we're here. So thank you so much, all. John, Daryl, you were awesome, and hope to have you on a future show.
Filipino.